The terrible heat of 38 degrees Celsius, which lasted for less than a day, was replaced by snow and frost. A scene like this can be seen in a science fiction film. However, the people of Colorado experienced it for themselves in September of 2020 in their own backyards. Because of the unusually early start of the snowstorm, electricity lines were knocked down and trees were uprooted, which caused them to fall onto automobiles and residences. It also served as a precursor to the coldest winter that has ever been documented in North America, which ultimately claimed the lives of hundreds of people. On the other hand, during certain times of the year, the western states of the United States experienced the worst drought in the last 1,200 years. Similarly, strange occurrences can be found all over the planet. These days, scientists predict that their total number will continue to expand. In a relatively short amount of time, the global average temperature will climb to the critical barrier of 1.5 degrees Celsius, which will propel humanity toward the most terrifying calamity that has occurred in the last 430 million years. Will the east coast of the United States, the Iceland, and the Maldives still be around in the future? When will Europe be completely engulfed by ice that is 1 meter thick? And perhaps most significantly, which of the two extremes, extreme heat or extreme cold, will eliminate the human population first? In April of 2023, for whatever reason that is still a mystery, the temperature of the ocean all around the world rose at a rate that was significantly higher than any previous record. The temperature of the water at the surface along the coast of North America reached almost 14 degrees higher than the average and reached a new high throughout the course of the past 30 years. This resulted in the recurrence of El Niño, a climate event that can have disastrous effects on a global scale. All continents and the mass media were flooded with news reports, which caused widespread panic. However, what exactly is this El Niño weather pattern, and why is it considered to be so alarming? Let's find out in today's episode. Under typical circumstances, winds blow between the tropics and around. In the northern hemisphere, the majority of these winds originate in the northeast, whereas in the southern hemisphere, the majority of these winds originate in the southeast. Although they are known as the trade winds, there are occasions when they lose some of their strength as they travel across the Pacific Ocean and no longer carry warm water from South America to Southeast Asia. They divert it instead toward the western coast of the United States. The temperature of the ocean there experiences an abnormal increase of approximately 6 to 10 degrees Celsius, which also causes the atmosphere of the Earth to heat up. As a result, a domino effect is created, which ultimately leads to changes in the weather around the world. Due to devastating natural disasters and the extinction of vast numbers of marine species, millions of people are bound to starve to death, and thousands may also perish. This is the real El Niño coming directly to us. According to the opinions of those knowledgeable in the field, it has probably been going so for at least the past 1,000 years in a row. But in the past, this occurrence would alternate between occurring every 5 to 7 years and lasting for a total of 18 months. Currently, as a result of rising temperatures, it occurs a great deal more frequently and has a far greater impact. The effects of El Niño are never predictable because of the variable nature of the phenomenon itself. Some areas become so parched that they literally catch fire, while others become flooded or are destroyed by hurricanes. In 1997 and 1998, a powerful El Niño was responsible for the beginning of floods and storms that were responsible for damage that exceeded $5 trillion. During those years, Indonesia was hit by one of the most severe droughts in recorded history, while northeast Kenya and southern Somalia were hit by extreme rainfall. Caused an epidemic of the Rift Valley fever at the time, which claimed many lives. The effects of El Niño were responsible for the deaths of approximately 23,000 individuals. 2016 was the year that recorded the strongest El Niño phenomenon ever observed. The year with the highest temperature ever recorded in the history of measurements came dangerously close to destroying the Fort McMurray region in Canada. At some point in time, a wildfire tore through the neighborhood and quickly expanded throughout an area that was nearly 600,000 hectares in size. The fire remained dormant for over a year, and it wasn't put out completely until August of 2017, when it was declared under control. As a consequence of this, around 90,000 people were required to evacuate their homes, making this the largest evacuation caused by a wildfire in the history of Canada. 2 people lost their life due to the incident. A record number of residents, 150, were killed by the heat in the meantime in Phoenix, which is the capital of Arizona. The heat did not even require roaring fires to do this. After learning about everything that India had to go through in 2016, even this doesn't seem like such a big deal anymore. Temperatures as high as 51 degrees Celsius were recorded in one of the country's cities, leading to a severe drought and a major shortage of fresh water that affected 330 million people. There were almost 1,000 Indians who did not make it through this living nightmare, according to some reports. As soon as the temperature begins to creep closer to 30 degrees Celsius, heat stress may begin to set in. The human body was just not designed to be able to handle temperatures of this unnatural nature. The ratio of sodium to potassium slows down metabolic processes and contributes to kidney failure. When exposed to temperatures of 40 degrees Celsius or higher, the human body begins to experience heat exhaustion and eventually passes out. It is terrifying to contemplate what much higher temperatures could do to you, especially considering how quickly they appear to be gaining control of the Earth. The temperature in Death Valley, which is the hottest region on the Earth, reached over 57 degrees Fahrenheit in 1913, making it the place on Earth where the highest recorded maximum temperature ever was registered. Despite being under the impact of a powerful El Niño in July of 2016, the temperature reached records that had never been reached before. Temperatures of an incredible 54 degrees Celsius were recorded in Kuwait, which is quite a distance from Death Valley. Even though 2016 has continued to have the hottest days on record, the record high temperature in Iraq was only 1/10 of a degree below the previous record. The temperature of the Earth's surface, as measured on average, is climbing steadily. This results in the onset of recent horrifying disasters and natural cataclysms, and beginning in 2023, the situation may start to rapidly worsen. The formation of a mega El Niño is already taking place beneath the surface of the ocean, and the experts agree that its potential impact on the world would be very damaging. Is it possible that this will start the countdown to the end of the world? Even if current calculations by experts provide a clear warning, if we don't find a solution to stop the rising global temperature by the end of this decade, we will confront twice as frequent hurricanes, storms, wildfires, and droughts, and their ferocity will also double. This will happen regardless of where you live on the planet. In addition, if we allow the globe to warm by 1.5 degrees Celsius above what is considered safe, we would have pushed it into an unstoppable state of climatic catastrophe. If we put any stock in the findings of scientists, we have a 0.1% chance of preventing it. In contrast to all of the natural disasters that have already been associated with the effects of climate change. This event occurred when the temperature increased by a maximum of 1.28 degrees, and any further increase in temperature will lead to changes in the environment that we will never be able to control. And if the predictions that have been made give us any reason to hope, it is that humans will be able to live on this harsh planet for a very long time. Some people believe that all living things will perish in a very short amount of time. The first thing that is typically brought up when debating the topic of glacial melting is the warming of the atmosphere. As of right now, that rate is already unmatched in history. Greenland lost 11 billion tons of ice in just one day on August 1, 2019, according to recent estimates. It is possible that this quantity of water is sufficient to fill 4,400,000 swimming pools of the Olympic size. That was the single-day drop in volume that set the record for magnitude. If the entire Greenland ice sheet were to melt, the total volume of water that would be released would be 115 times greater than that of the Great Lakes. The Greenland ice sheet has a thickness of at least 3 kilometers. If this actually takes place, the global average sea level will rise by 7 meters during the next century. In this scenario, not only would coastal regions be submerged, but roughly half of the world's population lives in cities that are more or less susceptible to increasing sea levels. However, the reality is that the vast majority of scientists agree that Miami and Bangladesh will both be submerged beneath the ocean within the next century. In fact, 15 million people are in danger of having to deal with an unexpected flood on a regular basis. The majority of them reside in India, Pakistan, Nepal, and China, which are all landlocked countries with extensive mountainous regions. When certain glaciers melt at the mountaintops, they create enormous lakes that are quite deep. If these lakes become excessively swollen from the influx of water, they will result in a surge of flood. This raging river will rush downhill at a rapid speed of about 75 miles per hour, 120 kilometers per hour, obliterating everything that stands in its path. This possibility could materialize at any given moment and involve any one of these lakes in the mountains. However, if for some reason all of the glaciers on Earth were to melt, the resulting damage would be absolutely catastrophic. The average worldwide sea level is projected to rise by around 65 meters. The Netherlands will be entirely submerged, and a great number of European cities will vanish from the face of the Earth forever. In certain parts of California, the Atlantic coast of the United States will no longer be visible. It is possible that the cities of Washington, as well as New York City, New Orleans, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, will no longer exist. The most populous cities in South America, including Buenos Aires, Lima, and Rio de Janeiro, will be flooded by water. With regard to Asia, the water will devour regions that are currently home to almost 600 million people, and there will be an entirely new seed that appears in the center of Australia. In addition, there will be a new seed that appears in the heart of Africa. Because the majority of this continent is situated at an elevation of at least 200 meters above sea level, the dry land that makes up Africa's territories will suffer the least amount of damage. Nevertheless, the rise in average temperatures around the globe will make it difficult to live there. Even if the sea level only increases a few meters, a significant proportion of freshwater sources will become polluted, and agricultural fields would be submerged. It is expected that tens of millions of people would be forced to flee their homes due to the effects of climate change. It is not an exaggeration to say that people will have to battle one another for food and water that can be consumed. On the other hand, it's possible that our agonizingly slow deaths won't be necessary. The so-called claff rate gun hypothesis predicts that an explosion caused by a methane bomb will bring about our collective extinction considerably more quickly. Since there is a 50 gigaton delay-action methane bomb hidden on the ocean floor, it is possible that it could explode at any time. Should this occur, there will be no more people on Earth in a matter of weeks. However, in reality, there won't be an explosion in the traditional sense, with a shockwave and dazzling flames, because there is a massive reserve of methane claff rate on the ocean floor. In addition, methane from permafrost is a major greenhouse gas that is approximately 34 times more efficient at retaining heat than carbon dioxide is. It is possible that these deposits will become exposed if global warming causes glaciers to melt into the ocean. Some researchers in the scientific community believe that the presence of methane claff rates was the direct cause of the largest extinction event to ever take place on Earth, which took place 250 million years ago. The temperature of the globe climbed by 10 degrees during that time, which resulted in the extinction of 90% of all creatures that were then alive. Currently, climatologists are seeing warning signs that it is best not to disregard. For instance, during the winters of 2020 and 2022, the most northern peninsula of Asia, known as Tamir, was forced to endure an extraordinary heat wave, which resulted in considerable methane leaks from the permafrost. After that, in January of 2023, a large iceberg separated from the ice shelf in Antarctica. It covered almost 1,500 square kilometers, which is roughly equivalent to the area of 2 New York cities. It was a stroke of good luck that the ice fragment in question did not contain any methane deposits. However, the next time around we might not be that fortunate, and the methane bomb might ultimately explode. You should also be aware that there are no antibodies or other forms of protection available against it. There is no way for humans to survive if significant quantities of methane claff rate are simultaneously released from the permafrost. On the other hand, everything can turn out very differently than expected. La Niña, El Niño's wicked twin sister, is another climate pattern that can occur on our planet. El Niño is not the only climatic pattern. Every action it does is analogous to a simple reflection. The prevailing trade winds pick up their intensity much further than they normally do, further dispersing the warm water and causing it to cool down an excessive amount. La Niña is the only weather pattern that has had any impact on the Pacific Ocean over the previous 3 years. It is rather astonishing that this weather pattern has persisted for a number of years in a row. It is a very unusual occurrence that has only been witnessed twice in the entirety of human history. However, if ocean temperatures continue to drop, does that mean that global warming will stop? Does this mean we are going to freeze? Obviously, both events included distinct catastrophes, the ferocity and severity of which have set new records throughout the course of the past few years. Australia was the first continent to feel the full force of La Niña's devastating effects. During the Black Summer, terrible bushfires ravaged an area that was at least 244,000 square kilometers in size, which is roughly equivalent to twice the size of England. Later, in the spring of 2022, Australia was hit by the most rainfall it had seen in the preceding 60 years. At the end of September, the states of Queensland and New South Wales received more rain in a single week than they normally do in an entire year. Heavy rains lashed a large number of populous cities and towns, including Sydney. The new rainfall record for the city is over 2.5 meters, which is a significant increase over the previous record. During this same time period, Europe was struggling to recover from the most severe drought it had experienced in the previous 500 years of its history. The decomposition of the many tons of fish that had been left to rot on the banks of the river has resulted in the contamination of the water that is still there, as well as the production of an unpleasant odor. And although the governments of the countries that make up the EU merely banned activities like watering lawns and washing vehicles because of a lack of water, the governments of some other states were unable to put out large-scale fires. As a direct result of this, by the end of July the fire had already consumed more than 515 hectares of land throughout Europe. And at least 24,000 people lost their lives as a direct result of the abnormally high temperatures and the consequences they brought. This is known as the triple dip. In addition to this, La Niña is to blame for the most deadly hurricane to hit Florida since 1935. Ian, it came with a downpour of epic magnitude, which was then followed by floods on a vast scale. At approximately the same period, a situation very much like the one mentioned earlier took place in Canada, which was struck by the most powerful cyclone in the annals of the country's weather record, Fiona. In Pakistan, the monsoon season brought about disastrous floods, which resulted in the deaths of more than 1,700 locals. In addition, images of horrible droughts and wildfires emerged during this time. A violent windstorm with gusts of up to 205 km per hour blasted across the peak of Mount Washington on February 3, 2023, bringing with it the catastrophic cold that La Niña had brought. In addition to this, the temperature of those winds dropped to levels that were extremely dangerous, reaching a low of -78 degrees Celsius. This is an all-time high in the chronicles of United States history, setting a new record in the process. Frostquakes are seismic events that occur when liquid water in the ground freezes solid and expands quickly. As a result of the hurricane force outbreak in less than 24 hours in Boston and the state of Maine, the mercury dropped from +10 to the coldest temperature in the last 60 years, which was -23 degrees Celsius. Such a sudden change in the weather led to frostquakes. However, this is not the end of the story, since throughout the course of a number of consecutive winters, residents of the United States and Canada have been discovered to have died of hypothermia. Even technology and devices that are considered to be modern day cannot always withstand the effects that severe storms and extremely high temperatures can have on them. Hundreds of thousands of people find themselves stranded in cities that have been rendered fully powerless and are without energy. Each and every time, severe winter storms are responsible for the loss of hundreds of lives. If Greenland's glaciers continue to recede at their current rate, the terrifying scenario described above may one day become an everyday occurrence for people all around the world. As Mark Ruffalo says, Climate change is the greatest threat to our existence in our short history on this planet. Nobody is going to buy their way out of its effects. You can suggest topics you want to see next in the comment section below. Please subscribe to Weather Collapse if you want to know more and be updated on the latest news about natural calamities or disasters happening all over the world, and don't forget to like today's video. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.